The sky was split open by the kind of storm that felt alive, angry, electric, and impossibly loud. Wind whipped through the abandoned coastal city like the roar of something ancient, something that had been sleeping for centuries and had finally awakened. Buildings trembled. Waves slammed against shattered docks. The atmosphere buzzed with a strange pulse, like the world itself was shuddering. And in the center of the chaos stood Xiao Zhan, drenched, breathless, and staring into the distance as thunder carved jagged lines across the sky. He wasn't supposed to be here. No one was. But he felt it. Calling. Pull. A whisper carried by the storm. Familiar, haunting, and unmistakably belonging to one person. Yibo. Xiao Zhan's heartbeat quickened. For days, he had been experiencing echoes. Flashes of memories that weren't entirely his, visions of places he had never been, and the sound of someone calling his name from inside dreams too vivid to ignore. Every echo led him here, to this ruined city where the sky was breaking apart. Lightning cracked again, illuminating the endless stretch of flooded streets. And beneath the thunder, Xiao Zhan heard it. A step. Low. Steady. Echoing through the empty avenue like the drum of fate. Xiao Zhan turned, breath catching in his throat. Wang Yibo emerged from the shadows, soaked in rain, strands of hair plastered to his forehead, eyes sharp and unreadable. The storm swirled behind him as if bending to his presence, like he commanded it. Xiao Zhan stepped forward. Yibo didn't move. The silence between them was deafening, heavy with a history neither fully remembered but both deeply felt. "You came," Wang Yibo finally said, his voice low, carried by the wind. "I didn't have a choice," Xiao Zhan answered. "You know that." Their eyes locked, and the storm seemed to pause, as if waiting. For years they had been connected by something invisible, something ancient, something powerful. They didn't understand it, but they could feel it in every breath. Whenever Xiao Zhan was in danger, Yibo felt pain in his own chest. Whenever Yibo was lost, Xiao Zhan heard whispers guiding him toward him. They were mirrors, shadows, reflections, two halves of a story older than memory. Xiao Zhan took another step. "What is happening to us?" he demanded. Wang Yibo's jaw tightened. "It's the storm." "What storm?" "This one." Yibo looked up at the raging sky. "It's not just weather. It's a manifestation. Surge. And we're the cause." Xiao Zhan's stomach twisted. "How?" Yibo hesitated. Just a second, but enough to reveal the fear behind his calm exterior. "Because our worlds are merging." Lightning tore through the sky again, hitting a collapsed tower in the distance and sending debris into the air. "Worlds?" Xiao Zhan echoed. Yibo nodded slowly. "Your world and mine. They're colliding." The truth of it hit Xiao Zhan like freezing rain. Everything he had seen in the past few days, the repeating visions, the unexplainable flashes of déjà vu, the dreams of a different life. A life where Yibo was always next to him. It all made sense. The echo wasn't a memory. It wasn't a dream. It was a warning. And now, the storm was here to finish what it started. Xiao Zhan breathed deeply, trying to steady his racing heart. "Then why call me here?" "Because the merge isn't complete," Yibo replied. "There's something we have to do." "What?" "Face the truth." A violent gust of wind whipped between them, carrying pieces of broken signs and shattered glass. The storm was getting worse, tightening around the city as if closing in. "What truth, Yibo?" Xiao Zhan demanded, stepping closer. "Tell me." Wang Yibo looked directly into his eyes, and for the first time, Xiao Zhan saw not the cold, mysterious figure he'd become, but the person he once knew. Someone warm, someone familiar, someone whose presence felt like home even when everything else was falling apart. "The storm is us," Yibo said softly. Xiao Zhan froze. "We caused it. Our connection, our bond, it's too strong. It's collapsing the boundaries between our worlds. Every echo, every vision, every time you heard my voice when I wasn't there. It's because the universe is trying to pull us together." Thunder rumbled like an agreement. Xiao Zhan swallowed hard. "Then how do we stop it?" You don't stop it, Yibo whispered. You choose it. Lightning surged around them, forming a glowing circle of white light, bright enough to blind, powerful enough to lift the hair on their skin. What happens if I choose it? Xiao Zhan asked. Our worlds become one. And if I don't? The light flickered violently. Everything falls apart. The city shook as another explosion of thunder cracked overhead. A fissure ripped through the sky, a gaping tear glowing with shimmering energy. Xiao Zhan felt himself pulled toward it, like gravity was dragging him upward. He stumbled. Yibo grabbed his arm instantly, gripping tightly. Their connection sparked, literally. Electricity danced across their skin where they touched. Xiao Zhan stared at him, breathless. We're out of time. I know, Yibo said, voice trembling for the first time. That's why you need to choose. The storm howled around them, swirling in a spiraling vortex, pulling debris, water, and light into the sky. The ground cracked beneath their feet, glowing with the same energy as the tear above. Everything was collapsing. Xiao Zhan closed his eyes. He saw flashes, visions not from this world, but from another life entirely. A life where he and Yibo trained together in a hidden temple. A life where they fought side by side against shadows made of fire. A life where Yibo reached for him in the dark and whispered, "Don't disappear." And then, another life, a modern one, laughing in a rehearsal room, practicing lines under the warm studio lights, sharing earphones in the back of a van, looking at each other across a crowded room and somehow knowing exactly what the other was thinking. The worlds weren't merging. They had always been the same. Different versions layered on top of each other. Different echoes, all belonging to one story. Their story. Xiao Zhan opened his eyes. I choose it, he said. Yibo inhaled sharply. Hope flickered in his gaze, bright as the lightning around them. Are you sure? Xiao Zhan nodded. Whatever happens, we face it together. Yibo stepped closer, so close their foreheads almost touched. Then hold on to me, he whispered. The storm exploded. Wind spiraled upward, pulling them off the ground. The city blurred into streaks of gray and blue. The glow from the fissure widened, swallowing the sky. Light consumed everything. Xiao Zhan held tightly onto Yibo's arm. Yibo gripped back even harder. The world stretched, bent, shattered into 1,000 shards of color. Everything dissolved into white. Heartbeat. One single echo pulsing through the void. Then another. Then two sinking together. When Xiao Zhan opened his eyes again, he was lying on a vast field of shimmering grass under a golden sky. The world looked new, glowing with impossible colors. The air was warm. The storm was gone. He sat up, breath shaky. Wang Yibo was beside him, staring at the horizon. Xiao Zhan exhaled in relief. We made it. Yibo turned his head slightly and smiled. Genuine, soft and real. No, he whispered. We created it. Xiao Zhan looked around, watching the golden sky ripple with light like it was breathing. The storm tightened its grip around the shattered city, swirling with a force that felt almost sentient, like it was watching, listening, waiting for the next move between the two figures standing face to face in the middle of the ruined avenue. The wind roared so violently it pulled at Xiao Zhan's clothes, tugging him one way, then another, as if trying to tear him away from the spot where he stood. Rain slammed against the cracked pavement, bouncing like shards of glass as lightning webbed across the sky in violent strokes. Yet through the chaos, Xiao Zhan saw only one thing. Yibo. Yibo stood like a pillar in the storm, unmoving, the rain cascading over him as if he were carved from stone. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, those intense, sharp eyes, held something that made Xiao Zhan's heart squeeze painfully. Fear, concern, recognition, all layered beneath the mask he always wore. Xiao Zhan took a careful step forward, his boots splashing through the rising water. You said our worlds are merging, he shouted over the thunder. But you didn't tell me why. Why now? Why us? Another flash of lightning lit up Yibo's face, casting shadows that made him look almost otherworldly. "Because the echoes are becoming stronger," Yibo replied. His voice carried unnaturally clearly through the storm, as if the wind itself parted to let his words through. "Every memory, every vision you've been seeing, those aren't accidents. Something is trying to force us to remember." Xiao Zhan's breath hitched. "Remember what?" Yibo's gaze softened just barely. "Who we were." Lightning struck a nearby tower, blasting chunks of metal into the air. The ground shook under the impact, sending ripples through the flooded street. Xiao Zhan stumbled, but before he could fall, Yibo moved. Swift, precise, almost as if he appeared without crossing the space between them. He caught Xiao Zhan by the wrist. Electricity surged through both of them at the exact moment their skin touched, a crackling burst of energy that made the storm around them pulse with light. Xiao Zhan gasped, not from fear but from the overwhelming familiarity of it. Like he had felt this exact touch before. In a dream, in another life. Yibo held him steady, his grip firm. "You feel it, don't you?" Xiao Zhan nodded, breathing hard. "I feel something. Like I've been here before. With you. Doing this." Yibo's lips pressed into a thin line. "You have." They stood frozen in that moment, their hands still connected, the storm swirling around them like a massive vortex. The energy between them wasn't just a metaphor. It was real, crackling, visible, echoing through the air. Suddenly, the storm deepened, growled. The sky opened into a swirling hole of light, not fully a tear, not fully a portal, but something unstable, twitching violently like a wound in the fabric of the world. It pulsed every few seconds, each time sending a wave of force down through the city that pushed the water outward in rippling circles. The pressure in Xiao Zhan's skull intensified. He winced, clutching his temple. Visions slammed into him, so fast he couldn't process them. A temple drenched in gold sunlight. A battlefield of burning shadows. Yibo's hand reaching for him through smoke. A whispered promise. "Don't break." Xiao Zhan staggered. "These visions, they're getting stronger." Yibo's expression hardened into something fierce. "Because the storm knows you're here. Knows we're together. And it's reacting." Xiao Zhan forced himself to meet Yibo's gaze. "Then tell me. Tell me everything. Stop hiding what you know. If we're responsible for this, I need to understand." Yibo hesitated, but only for a second. Then he stepped closer, so close their faces were only inches apart. The wind whipped around them in spirals, but neither moved. "The storm is the echo of the past we shared," Yibo said quietly. "It's the memory of what we were, leaking into this world." "What were we?" Yibo's voice dropped even lower. "Connected." The word vibrated through Xiao Zhan's chest with a strange heat. Connected. Felt right. Too right. A massive blast of thunder split the sky, and the swirling tier overhead widened suddenly, pulling anything not rooted to the ground upward. Metal signs lifted into the air. Broken street lamps snapped from their bases. Even the water rose in twisting spirals. Xiao Zhan felt his body beginning to lift, but Yibo grabbed him again, anchoring him with both hands on his shoulders. "Stay with me," Yibo commanded. "Look at me. Only me. I am looking at you," Xiao Zhan shouted. "Then listen." Their foreheads almost touched. The storm screamed around them. The tear in the sky pulsed brighter. "Our worlds are collapsing into each other, Zhan," Yibo said, using his name with a tenderness that made Xiao Zhan's chest tighten. "And the only way to stabilize them is for you to accept the echoes." "What does that even mean?" Xiao Zhan asked, gripping Yibo's arms. "What are the echoes trying to tell me?" "That our story didn't begin here," Yibo whispered. "It began long before, and it's pulling you back to the truth." Xiao Zhan stared at him, wild-eyed, soaked in rain, trembling from the force of everything happening both inside and around him. "Then show me, Yibo," he said. "If you know the truth, show me." That was the moment the storm reacted. It didn't just howl. Screamed. Lightning struck the ground between them, a pillar of white fire so intense it blinded them. The pavement cracked open, glowing with the same shimmering energy as the sky tear. The cracks raced outward like living veins, circling the two of them, trapping them inside a ring of electric light. Yibo didn't flinch. Xiao Zhan didn't step back. Their hands found each other again, naturally, instinctively, fingers locking together with a force that made the crackling energy spike upward. The storm formed a vortex above them. The tear in the sky widened further. The echoes flooded Xiao Zhan's mind. Images, sounds, flashes of another life, of another version of himself and Yibo standing in a storm just like this one, choosing something together. His breath shuddered. His heart pounded. And suddenly, he understood. The storm wasn't just reacting to them. It was waiting for them. Waiting for a choice they had made once before. Waiting for a promise they had broken or forgotten. Waiting for them to finish the story they started in another world. Xiao Zhan held Yibo's gaze as the light wrapped around them. "Yibo," he whispered. "I remember something. Not everything, but something." "What did you remember?" Yibo asked, tightening his hold. "That I wasn't alone," Xiao Zhan said. "That you were there. Always." Yibo exhaled shakily. "Then you're ready." "For what?" "For the truth to come back." The storm contracted around them like a closing fist, then exploded outward in a ring of blinding light. Everything vanished. And that's where this continuation ends. If you enjoyed this thrilling expansion of the storm scene, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more amazing cinematic stories.